It's an instinct of the higher nature. You see, you're only human as you rise above the animal. Your animal self is one fundamental factor or element in your life. Then when you come into the higher things that are not animal, the things of the spirit, then you get into this realm that we call art, and you begin to look for things that are creative rather than just repetitive. And I think there's where you're in the realm of culture rather than education, because you can educate an animal. You've seen them do tricks, haven't you? Well, I think that's a pretty good definition of the difference between education and culture. So you can see how the trampling of the herd would have a small chance to develop culture of an individual. It's got to be an individual affair. It's got to be a slow affair. It's got to be a peculiar to you affair. Now, how are you going to do it with 20,000 students in the university? How are you going to do it with high schools crammed 2 stories, 3 stories high with a crowd of students? As a matter of fact, culture is not for the herd. Culture is not for the crowd. Culture is an individual thing. And that's what our forefathers struck when they decided, and when they declared, that the individual is sovereign. The sovereignty of the individual. Now, that means a certain premium on aloneness to start with, a certain rejection of the common man as common, but insisting on his privilege to be uncommon. And so that exists in every human soul today, and this is the country that we live in that declares it, the only one that has made it official, the only one that has made it constitutional, to be yourself. And we see abuses of it, of course, all down the line now. We see ourselves all drifting back again, drifting toward the commonplace, drifting toward the common man. And you hear it asserted that that was what our country meant, that the common man was free to be common. Well, he wasn't. He was free to become uncommon. And that's the freedom that we ought to tote and talk about. And we should resent with all our strength this drift toward equalitarianism, which is commonness raised to the nth power. But it's because of the tremendous numbers of people and the advantages that those people now have that the city is dated. And the city is now a bad influence. It's no longer essential for people to crowd together anywhere. And there's no reason why you can't have all the advantages of the city to a much greater extent far away from crowds. In fact, crowding is now anathema. Crowding cannot be done. Well, the city, of course, is a thing of the past. There was a time during the Middle Ages when it was the only source of culture. There was no way of acquiring this thing we call culture except by direct contact, you see. It isn't so now. It hasn't been so for many years. It wasn't even so when this country was founded, but of course it was more so. But gradually, all the development of all these sciences, the gifts of science to us, have made this crowding unnecessary. And it always was after the Middle Ages, it always was a detriment. It never had any never was any real asset to humanity. And especially when the emphasis now comes on the individual and the growth of the individual unit and the whole process of civilization dependent upon the quality of that individual, especially. We've got to give over this crowd. We've got to get out of the crowd. We've got to be all the crowd there is ourselves.